Good afternoon and welcome to the group chat on the two-way platform. As always, we are happy to see you all for a fascinating, spirited discussion and debate on the news of the day and the week, or anything we feel like addressing or anything you feel like addressing, because we invite you to participate in the program. Just raise your hand. We'll call on you and we'll field your comments, questions, etc. Take the conversation in any direction you want, but we do encourage you to manifest the ethos of two-way, which is peace, love, and understanding. And please reflect that civility in any of the commenting going on as well. We would really appreciate it. I'm Robby Soave. I'm joined, as always, by the Honorable Nina Turner and Emma Jo Morris. And joining us again, he did a great job last week. We're happy to have him with us, Robert Patillo. Nice to see you all. I know that there was a seeming fatigue with Epstein-related things, I think, last week, but I'm not fatigued. I'm entertained. So here we go for now. The big news of the day being that Prince Andrew, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, we're not allowed. We have to identify him by some new name, is what I'm told, even though he's still was the same guy who was the prince, and I don't really buy into that. Was taken into custody and released for misconduct relating to his office, having to do with allegedly having some conversation with Jeffrey Epstein about state secrets, something of that nature. Most people know that he was one of the more powerful people accused of sexual misconduct by Virginia Giuffre, who is the best known Epstein accuser. She made accusations against Epstein, Prince Andrew, and other people. Did retract the accusations against Alan Dershowitz, but not against the prince and not against Epstein himself. Sadly, she passed away. She committed suicide. So there has been a lot of desire to get justice for her or for other alleged victims. Again, this is not him being taken in custody relating to sexual misconduct, but misconduct. Certainly, it continues to be fascinating to a lot of people that the ramifications of U.S. authorities releasing the millions of pages of Epstein documents has been nothing in the U.S. In terms of people suffering legal consequences. And in fact, and maybe we can get into this, in fact, Ro Khanna, who said the names of several men on the House floor, had to concede later that they were unrelated, or four of them were, to the Epstein, to Epstein at all, that they were in a police lineup, and that was a very telling mistake to me. But over across the pond, as it were, the government is in disarray. Mandelson, who is the U.S. ambassador, had to step down. Keir Starmer's entire government might be taken down, and now this with the royal family. So very interesting that it's having bigger effects there than here. We've already got some hands, but anybody want to chime in? And Nina, I think you've been the most continuing to believe there's a lot of wrongdoing yet to uncover and a lot of justice that still needs to be done. Is bringing down Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, one of your what are the names you say, Arya Stark, before you go to bed to get one of those people
No,
crossed
no,
off?
no, Robbie, not at all. But I'm really happy to see across the pond they're taking this much more seriously than people are over here. So no, I wasn't rooting for the man to go down because that means that he's involved in ways that that are just not palatable, shouldn't be palatable to anybody. But I'm glad that they're over there. They're not just letting this kind of stuff slide by. They're not just saying nothing to see. They're actually digging in and doing investigations in a way that should be done here in the United States, and heretofore has not. I believe that there is going to be some connections, some clues, the breadcrumbs have been dropped, and people have to follow those breadcrumbs and let justice be meted out. Even now, as you laid out in the introduction, him being arrested, I know he's been let go for now, has nothing to do with the sexual allegations. It has everything to do with the state secrets and all of that. But I think it also gets us closer to some of the things that were happening and why Epstein, who, as far as I'm concerned, had no real talent that should be marketed in that way, to be making that kind of money, to be able to be rubbing elbows that deeply with people with all this money, finds himself found himself able to be able to manipulate and to be in control in those circles, and having people that were literally dying to rub elbows with him. So these are some clues, I think, to some deeper rooted.
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten in a little bit of, I've courted some controversy this week and last on social media for now associating myself with a group of, I wouldn't, it's not skeptics and it's not trying to rewrite the story of Epstein himself. I still believe he's a reprehensible sex criminal. But, and I've said it on this show before, I'll say it again. I was told that the reason for releasing the files was to cover evidence of sexual abuse that Epstein had procured underage girls for other powerful people. And I'm still not seeing any of that. And some of the people on the other side of this keep pointing to evidence that A isn't evidence, or then saying, well, this is why we have to release even more files. And it does not give me a lot of comfort at all to watch Ro Khanna, someone who I respect, honestly. I didn't have a lot of problems with him. I've had him on some of my other television programs. He's been on two-way. I'm not saying it's bad faith in any way what he or Thomas Massie are doing, but when you name 4 random people on the House floor that have nothing to do with Epstein, I mean, and then have to say, oops, that was not, that's not what we meant to do. Well, I'm sorry, that was the whole reason to not just release millions of pages of documents that smear people who have nothing to do with Epstein. And I'm becoming more convinced that was a very sus thing to do, in lieu of finding any actual sex criminals. But maybe I'm wrong.
The way that sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'll hop in afterwards.
Yeah, I just have a snide quip anyway. You'll be able to actually make a real point, But the whole vibe around this, the behavior around it, just how Robby has been describing it accurately, makes me feel like I'm watching like a gambling addict. Like this next dump is gonna be the one that has the jackpot in it, Like this next release is gonna be the one where we get the list, the elusive list that we have all been told about. Including, by the way, by Pam Bondi, but whatever. I haven't seen a list. I haven't seen the list. I haven't seen the payload of the gambling that we've been doing. In the meantime, we're just smearing people that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor has been delivered justice or whatever. Anyway, please.
I gotta go get some paper, Robby.
Yeah, it's the exact. My metaphor would be the next Marvel superhero movie is going to be the one that gets the cinematic universe back on track. No, the next one will be good. Like, you know what? I think maybe it's just run its course.
Things are being conflated here, but go ahead, Robert.
So the 2 points. One, you guys are literally saying that we are watching in real time the largest cover-up in U.S. history. The fact that the President of the United States and the Attorney General at one point in time said she had the client list on her desk, and then within weeks said, no, there is no client list. I made all that up. I was either lying then or I'm lying now. And then the DOJ literally hires hundreds of attorneys, puts FBI agents full-time on redacting and getting rid of the files, any ones that implicate Trump. There's still nearly 3 million files that have not been released.
I think the Occam's razor is she had no idea what she was talking about, and when she said
she was lying,
she was not, or she was lying. Fine, she wanted to make the base happy.
You can't say the Attorney General was lying, and that's fine. You literally not say that.
She should be fired. But the answer, she said she had it. Kash Patel said it doesn't exist, and sorry, we don't see any evidence of other sex crime people. So one of them is right and one of them's wrong.
That is called a cover-up. That's bigger than, think about how little Watergate was. Think about how little Lewinsky Gate was compared to what we're talking about right now. The person who was eighth in line to the royal crown was just arrested because of what was contained in these files. And we're sitting here acting like this is some kind of little tabloid story. Secondarily, and this is the point that I really wanted to get to, now these sex crimes become the B storyline in all of this. Because now we have to ask ourselves, why was some guy who was a high school substitute teacher, Jeffrey Epstein, able to get a member of the royal family who was eighth in line to the crown to secretly funnel state secrets to him on financial transactions on an international basis to the point of being thrown out of the royal family and then arrested? So why is that? Hold on. We're going to ride this one out. Why exactly? the Emirati who was in charge of the port of Dubai deposed this week because he was in the files? Why is the Polish government investigating what was in those Epstein files, been trying to find out if he was a member of the KGB or part of Russian intelligence? Why is it you have European powers investigating Viktor Orban, trying to find out if Epstein was a Mossad member? Why was he CIA
Yeah, but
in
nobody
the
can,
files?
nobody can substantiate any of those claims. Right, I've been hearing he's Israeli intelligence. I supported the release of the Epstein files because I took very seriously this claim that he had something to do with Israeli intelligence. That doesn't look, the guy had a lot of money and liked to talk to other important people. And you're right that we might find evidence of financial crimes involving the royal family or any number of other people, and good, prosecute them all. But the reason but the sex crimes taking a back seat, I mean, then that was absurd to say that it was about sex crimes.
Robert has given the right take. Robert is right there. I think that Robert is right. Robert is right. The international pedophile ring, I think, was the red herring to not talk about what it actually is, which is there is a strata of financial activity that goes on that I think includes world governments, and I think it includes mega elite, like not like people who just live on the Upper East Side, but I mean like really mega elite, 1% of 1%. That there is a certain economy that exists among those people, and it includes, I'm sure it includes the CIA, I'm sure it includes MI5, I'm sure it includes Mossad, and I'm sure it includes KGB too. They move money in a certain way, and they interact in a certain way, and they do commerce, certain commerce that we don't have access to, that we're not supposed to have access to. And that is part of what makes the world turn. And I think that that is exactly what we are not supposed to know. And the reason why I think there was such a close hold on these documents, I think that Epstein was obviously involved in that. I think it involves criminal financial activity. I think it involves insider information and other things. It's a layer of operation that we aren't supposed to know and see and touch. And that is the thing. And it's an international crime, like pedophile, like, I don't know. I think that that's actually the middle of the bell curve kind of theory. And then the outsides of the bell curves are, no, this is a financial crimes ring, actually. And that's what's interesting. And that is the crime. It's not as salacious as, the alternative theory, but I think it's a smarter theory. I think that's right. Robert just said it. And that's the most dangerous fact about this, and that.
But then what do we make of all the women?
Right one.
What do we make of the alleged survivors standing behind Massey and Kana? Those women screaming at the top of their lungs, not that they were the victims of like taxes being collected wrong, but the victims of sexual abuse. Like, right? I mean,
because both can be true
as
at
Robert
once.
said, it's the B crime. It's not the A crime. It's the B crime.
Look, let me put it this way. I'll give you an analogy. Everyone was concentrating on Diddy going to jail for having baby oil free calls. That's what was the A line of the entire thing.
Right.
Then we get a documentary released on Diddy. It turns out Diddy might be a serial killer who had Tupac and Biggie and who knows how many other people murdered. That now becomes the A plot. Does that mean that the freak off baby oil parties didn't happen? No, all that still happened. But now we should be investigating what happened to Tupac and Biggie. Similarly, with Epstein, yes, all the child sex trafficking. I met many of the victims on the Capitol. Those women are not lying. They deserve justice. There are emails where they say you'll end up buried under the golf course with everyone else. We should be investigating that. RFK went on archaeological digs with the Epsteins. Were they burying people? We should be investigating all of that. But on top of that, we need to find out what the guy who controls all the port shipments in Dubai, the prince who controlled the financials of the royal family, and this guy who had an island full of perverts, why were they all connected? And why was Elon begging to go to the island? And why was Bill Gates asking for information on his STDs? And why was it Larry Summers, who was the Treasury Secretary or the financial advisor for Clinton, involved in this? And why is Lutnick, who's our Commerce Secretary, not out of office right now for clearly lying? So now you can can have more than one thing going on at one time. And if the child sex trafficking is what opened up the door for us to find out about these levels of corruption that are operating on an international level, then by all means, let's investigate this across the board.
I just could not disagree more. I think the international sex trafficking of children was what I was promised I would find evidence of if all the files were released. And that's what the women, the proximate victims, say there is. And they can't produce a single name or a single shred of documentation to substantiate the most wild and disturbing ideas about Epstein. And then it's like, well, yeah, but wealthy people were getting together and, you know, they did all sorts of bad things, but it's not at all what we said it was. I don't know. That bothers me. It bothers me
A whole lot of
profoundly.
sarcasm from you off of other people's real pain. I really do. I mean, this is just.
But there's no evidence of it. At what point, if they
There's
can't,
still
if nothing
2.5
they
million
says,
files that haven't been released. There's 2.5 million files that haven't been released.
yeah,
They
you're
set
right.
up
It's in the stuff we haven't got.
they-
The really
they
good stuff's
set
still
up
coming. I just don't
4
believe that.
computers for 535 members of Congress. They set up 4 computers for them to look at the files unredacted.
They all,
And
right.
then
They all went
track
through
their
them and they
search
came up
history.
with 4 names of people who have nothing to do with Epstein. Like, I can't
Then
have the
why-
football
then
pulled out
why-
of my kicking range this many times without me saying, you know what? Maybe all these people are full of shit. Maybe
No,
that's the most logical.
Or maybe the administration that has been lying to you this entire time is still lying to you. Is that a possibility?
I think they lied when they said we have a list of people who Epstein trafficked girls to.
So
I
you
think they
believe
lied
that lie? I mean, you believe
I
that?
believe that was the lie. Yes.
But you don't believe that they're lying on any of this other stuff.
No, I think the people who claimed this ridiculous notion and can't have nothing to show for it are the ones lying. But I could be wrong.
Except for all the victims who are alive and telling us exactly what happened, and all the rich people who are suddenly scrambling and quitting their
They're not.
jobs
They won't
and
name a
hiring
name.
lawyers.
They won't give us a single name, so they're not telling us. Who?
They're literally telling us.
But they're not.
Just invite the women on your show. The problem is many of them are still in fear of their lives because they don't trust this government to protect them. Many of them don't think Virginia Giuffre has actually killed herself, and they don't want to end up like her, so they're not really releasing that many names.
Okay.
Maybe we should have a government that supports
maybe
them
you're
and
right.
actually can protect
Bigfoot is
them.
hiding the evidence of
You're
the
calling this
client list
Bigfoot
then.
now. Okay.
No,
yes.
I'm calling the idea that Virginia Giuffre is still alive is
Oh, no.
equivalent
Not
of
that she's still
thinking.
alive, but maybe she didn't die by her own hand as has been accused.
Maybe. I'm a journalist.
certainly
I can't deal with eventually
So
just
when
totally.
suicide is I mean, when somebody is driven to suicide, that's some serious stuff, Robbie. And making light of that, this is ridiculous.
She was mentally unwell, and that could be because of what she went through.
Members who got their hands up.
All right, let's take an audience perspective. Who we got first? I believe that's Sharon. Welcome, thank you. Thanks for being with us. Are you still muted? There, you're unmuted. Nice to see you.
Okay, nice to see you guys too. The problem is this whole Epstein thing is such a freaking mess because it's been going on since, I don't know, whenever he got that deal down in Florida. There have been many administrations, justice departments that have not really looked into if there were criminal activities taking place with other than Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. The problem is whatever anybody says, some people are going to believe it, some people aren't. And it's just a big effing mess that will never be solved. And I have a problem with being sleazy is not illegal. And we learned that in the Diddy trial. Buying vats of baby oil is not illegal. It's disgusting, it's gross, but it's not illegal. And I think there were a lot of rich people that probably did things that are disgusting and gross, but that doesn't make it illegal. And I think we're confusing the difference between disgusting and gross and what is actually legal or illegal. And I do have a problem with child pedophile ring, because my understanding is a lot of these women, they weren't children, they were, I don't know,
They're
16,
17. They're 16 and
18.
17.
And if you actually go through all the 50 states, in some states, 16 is the age of legal consent for sex. Doesn't make it right, but it's also not illegal. So, and some of these women actually brought friends to the party. So, wouldn't they be the same as Ghislaine Maxwell? I mean, if they brought other women into the whole thing, I think it's just a big mess, and I don't know how it gets sorted out. But I don't think branding everybody that's a sleazeball. I mean, I read the Scarlet Letter when I was in high school.
You're
You
speaking
know,
my language, Sharon. I feel we should express moral condemnation and even revulsion in, you know, gullible or impressionable young people being taken advantage of. It is, you know, it's morally wrong to do that, especially as our, you know, standards for society for at what age things are appropriate has shifted in a good way, and we look down on that. And Epstein is himself, in my view, absolutely guilty, because in the state of Florida, the age is 18, and he had sexual relations with girls younger than that, and that's what he was charged with. And so it's no revisionism on him personally, but I agree with you.
I also know 1 degree separation of a very, very, very wealthy man who, if he worked at a convenience store, would probably never get a date. But because of his wealth, beautiful women threw themselves at him. So to say that women aren't capable of wanting to be around rich and powerful men and don't have any agency in that decision. I mean, this whole Epstein thing makes it sound like they were all tied and bound in a basement and he brought them out. Yeah. I mean, a lot of these women probably enjoyed the perks of being around very wealthy people too.
Mm.
And that's not a crime either.
I mean,
Thank you for those thoughts, Sharon. Appreciate it. Yeah, I think there's been too much narrow-mindedness on this topic. Nina, go ahead.
I mean, Sharon raises some very good and well-taken points. I don't necessarily, all of those things could be possible, and she's right. Being sleazy is not a crime. But Robby, I think you were hitting at it, not necessarily the way that I'm about to hit at it, but we got to call the moral question. And when children are involved, and just because legally the age may be 18 in one state, 17 in another, I'm speaking to you from the mama code, okay? It's never okay. 17 is not far enough from 16. 18 is not far enough from 16. And people can be manipulated, especially the younger you are. So yeah, while it may be true that some of those women knew exactly what they were getting into, sharing your point, enjoying being around that kind of power, yeah, that may be true. But there's a whole host of other women and girls who did not and who were lured into the trap of being around this man and other men. And that's why one of the reasons why Maxwell is in prison right now. I mean, as Robert was saying, more than one thing can be true at once. But what is galling to me is it seems like a total disregard for the victimization of some of these girls and some of these women. And Epstein is not the only one. And the email, so when you say, Robby, you were prominent, I know you're being sarcastic when you say that, but everything that was done may or may not be in those emails.
I just find it amazing that when I grew up with the conservative movement, and my family was very conservative, Southern Baptist in the South. Every Sunday was the Crystal Cathedral, the Christian Coalition. My dad gave money to Jimmy Swaggart and Jerry Falwell. We had to have an entire book of biblical tapes and Bible camp and all that. I have no idea that the Christian conservative movement by 2026 will be MAGA 2026. They're technically legal. I mean, how far morally has the Republican
Well, I
Party
mean, you're dealing with me. I'm a libertarian. I'm not a social conservative.
MAGA 2026.
Em and I are both gay married.
Look,
so we're not.
And look, there was this comedian a few years ago who had a joke who said, technically, if you're attracted to children, that's a pedophile, like pediatric. But then if you're attracted to teenagers, that's a hebephile, middle school age. And then a late teen to early adulthood is an ehebephile. But nobody makes that distinction because you always sound like a pedophile when you try to make that distinction. We are literally talking about millionaires and billionaires, and in the emails you can see bringing in young girls in shipping containers from every part of the globe saying, well, she's 16, but she's beautiful, she'll be here overnight. Okay, and we're saying, well, that's fine. That's okay.
Shipping
that is the
containers,
moral
again, there's
reckoning
no
in this country.
against their will evidence at
So
all.
you're saying
Oh my God, you think that a 16-year-old has the capacity?
No. And he said taken in shipping containers to the island. No, they can't consent, which is why Epstein was rightfully prosecuted. Don't mistake me.
And all the people
they were not
should also be prosecuted. And the point is that they're not. Why are people all around the globe losing positions, being thrown out of the royal family? How the hell do you get kicked out of your job in the Middle East? They have very different rules there. And the poor person in charge of all shipping in Dubai port lost their job because of this. But in America, we're doing yada, yada, yada. This is just some kind of small story.
Well, yes, there is a witch hunt sort of fervor going on that is causing consequences for people. I don't think the fact that is happening is evidence that what we're arguing about is whether that is that could be correct, whatever. These people should maybe lose their jobs depending on I think Bill Gates looks reprehensible, but I kind of thought Bill Gates was reprehensible before. I think Steve Bannon looks reprehensible, but I didn't like Steve Bannon before either. These people you're mentioning, I'm not trying to rehabilitate their reputations. They're scumbags. Screw them. But they're also
the Epstein file.
There's no evidence of sex crimes against children.
There's literally an email chain between between Steve Bannon and Epstein talking about how they want to take down Pope Francis. I mean, we have to dig deeper into this. We have to understand just how deep these things are going. And this idea that we're just going to yada, yada, yada the whole thing because it doesn't fit the political narrative that we want. I think that this is the wrong direction for the MAGA movement and the libertarian movement to just say yada, yada, yada. We can bang them if they're 16. I don't think that's going to work on a bumper sticker going into the midterms.
No one said
that.
In Steve Bannon's defense, people have been name checking Steve Bannon.
I know you're the Bannon defender.
I can just be. I can be sure. I don't know, but I could be sure that the Pope Francis thing was because he's an open borders guy.
You don't talk about taking down the Pope. That's a Nicolas Cage storyline from National Treasures. I mean, at this point, you can't even make a show like House of Cards or a Scandal anymore because real life is far crazier than anything Shonda Rhimes could ever make up.
Again, in his defense, Bannon has a very flamboyant way of speaking, which is what makes him a fascinating character.
Yeah, let's get another community member. We've got some more hands. Let's see who's on deck. Hello there, my friend. How you doing?
Hi, guys. Hi.
Mind.
So this whole Epstein thing, I've been trying to keep up with it. There's just so many rabbit holes to it. The two things I'll say about it is I myself, and this sounds a lot too much in my opinion, like QAnon. And just 5 years ago, we had QAnon, and I was burned out by QAnon because we had Pizzagate, and then we had QAnon about how Trump was some savior guy who was going to save us from like Satan worshiping pedophile stuff, and that kind of fizzled out after 2020. But also, I think there's one interesting aspect to the Epstein files that I haven't heard many people talk about is that Vladimir Putin and Sergei Lavrov, who's the foreign minister of Russia, are mentioned in there. And Epstein said that he tried to meet with Putin in 2012, 2014, saying, "Hey, I can give you some information on how to deal with Trump." So isn't that like an angle that's kind of also worth pursuing about like if there's something there? I don't know if Putin's some
I thought though that Putin owned Trump, so I'm confused.
yeah, that is a fair point. So
Yeah,
Well,
I
see,
mean, look, the guy liked to interact with important people, right? I don't know exactly. Do you know the context in which Putin is mentioned in them?
I didn't see, I just saw it in an article somewhere. I didn't know the context, but I'm not a fan of
I don't
Vladimir
recall
Putin by any way,
yeah, I'm
shape,
not
or form,
either.
but I don't see that guy being some kind of sexual pedo guy. And even if he is, what are we going to do about it?
Yeah,
What?
no,
We're going to go into Russia and arrest him?
Anthony, yeah, seriously. First of all, seriously. Second of all, Anthony said it, which it was Epstein was trying to work an angle of meeting Putin to teach him about Trump because he knew Trump from New York and he'll give him advice. Um, I think that this is again, like, I mean, I don't know. I'm gonna die on this hill. I think I'll die on this hill. I think I should actually leave the show and you guys can just play a reel of me every time we do an Epstein show.
I'm ready to die, but then they'll say we didn't kill ourselves.
Exactly. Robby did kill himself, but yeah, it's the same. This is the Epstein raison d'être. I'm from Quebec actually, so my age of consent. Not gonna go there. Um,
What is
this
it, like
this is
42
the
or something there?
reason, yeah, like 12. No,
Maybe you
this
just don't
is
want to
the
reproduce.
reason why the Epstein world existed. It was to trade access, it was to sell handshakes, it was to sell information, it was to broaden a network of the most powerful and exclusive people in the world, to do business, to trade information, and probably to do things that were in, let's say, the gray area of legality to figure out how to do that in a clever way together. And that was the conspiracy.
We've got Jen up next. Jen is with us. Hello, Jen. What's on your mind?
She muted.
There you go.
Okay, finally got it. Well, I thought, no matter what's happening in other countries and what particular legal standard they have, in this country, you are innocent until proven guilty. And you are proven guilty in a court of law. And in order for some sort of prosecutor to take you to that court, they're going to have real evidence that the crime was committed and that this person was the one that perpetrated the crime. I just honestly don't see that happening. Now, the only way I can think of is if there is evidence somewhere, and there may be plenty of evidence, it's just that we don't know where it is. I mean, real evidence. I would send Ghislaine Maxwell to the worst prison in the United States and put her in solitary and tell her when she's ready to bargain for getting back into the country club prison. We'll talk. I don't want to give her freedom, but right now she has no incentive to say anything else, outside of getting clemency of some sort. So
That's interesting. She's such a deceptive character
yeah.
that I worry about any deal with her anyway, because giving her giving her incentive to just name names,
that wouldn't be good enough. It would have to be real proof.
Yeah.
I mean, if somewhere there, they had to have something to hold over people's heads if they were getting, cooperation from them with state secrets or moving money around or whatever. There had to be real evidence, some sort of photographs or videos, something. And she may know where those are, but if they exist, if any of that ever happened, we don't have proof of anything. But the conspiracies are kind of fun.
I think we've got one more hand up on this topic, and then if we've burnt out Epstein, we can move on to other things. Mitchell, hello.
Hello, good afternoon, y'all.
Nice to see you.
Actually, have a pretty good pivot, I think.
Great.
So I think one of the downsides to the Epstein story being as overwhelming as it is, with as much documentation and all kinds of other like sort of smaller elements to it that are being reported on at any given moment, is that there's only a certain amount of oxygen in the room for scandal stories, and Epstein for the last while has taken up basically all of the media oxygen in the room for scandal stories. So like the sort of scandalous story, I suppose, that I've been following for a while that just kind of blew up is Representative Tony Gonzalez from Texas, who I believe a few months ago, his former aide committed suicide by lighting herself on fire, which
That's
is a pretty
terrible.
wild story to start with. And I guess in the last couple of days, text messages were released that confirmed that they were having an affair between Tony Gonzalez and the aide. And he just posted up, I believe yesterday, basically claiming that he's being blackmailed by the husband of the lady who committed suicide. So there are a million other kind of stories with, sitting legitimate, powerful people, that those stories aren't being taken up because all that oxygen's being sucked out of the room.
Yeah, I've only heard a little bit. I read scant details on that story. It just sounds awful. That you said, I'm sorry, you said the blackmailing, that Tony Gonzalez was blackmailing.
He posted a portion of a what looks like a legal document from the attorney for the husband, I believe, effectively claiming damages of some variety. But it's kind of unclear from what I've seen what the husband is claiming, why it has to do specifically with Tony, and it just has something about $300,000. And
she was pregnant. Was she he got her pregnant? Is that what happened? Is that I saw that.
It's still very much developing story.
Yeah, that's a rough one. Thank you very much. Yes, we've had no appetite for anything but Epstein lately. Let's move on to
one thing to respond to
ahead.
super quick, because I think that actually he's kind of brushing up or circling a point that I think is a really important point that I've brought up before on the show, and it's something that occurs to me when we're on the 7th show of 7 weeks or 10 weeks about Epstein, which is
I'm on my 7th show about Epstein today.
yeah, no, I mean, Robby did kill himself. I would just say that it's unfortunate for all of us and the American people that this is what the Democrats would like to talk about. Nina, I'm surprised that you're not more frustrated by this, because this is something that I feel like it's a Nina gripe that we would typically share. That like it's like, okay, what is this materially doing to help me raise my kid more easily? Like really. It's very frustrating. It's very frustrating. That was what I expect from people. And it's Mitchell, it's not just that it takes up all of the scandal oxygen in the room, it takes up all of the oxygen in the room, period. And we're not talking about policy on this show anymore. Not just this show, like in our in the public discourse. Like we're not talking about policy. It's over. It's it. We're talking about Epstein. We're talking about a pedophile ring that I haven't seen yet in 10 years.
Nina, did you want to respond to that?
I mean, listen, my gripe with the mainline Democrats continues whether we're talking about Epstein or not. This is part of the concerns of the American people. This should be talked about regardless of what the Democrats are doing or not doing. I'm not holding this in juxtaposition to all the other things that the Democratic Party is not doing. And let us not forget, Emma Jo, that we know we've had this conversation too. The mega side is the one that brought this up.
No, totally. It was a podcast universe thing, and then opportunistically, the Democrats adopted it.
Well, I mean, listen, both political parties, unfortunately, play silly games. Tricks are for kids.
Yeah.
And to the larger point that I think you're making, which I would agree with, that meanwhile, if nothing really comes of this in terms of getting justice for the victims, as far as I'm concerned, that's really what I want to see happen. I don't want to make light of suicide and whether which state has a legal age compared to another one. Some of this stuff is just straight up morally wrong. All of this stuff is morally wrong, whether or not it's legally wrong. And there can be a conflict between morality and law, as we all know. Now, I'm going to put that in the parking lot. I am patently disturbed by the fact that if this is a distraction, other things are being used as a distraction to the extent that the material conditions of American people are not changing, and people continue to get caught up in these things and not realizing that their lives have not changed for the better. I see that the same thing with these ICE roundups too. For example, saying we're going to round up these immigrants and all of a sudden your life is going to be 100% better. That is a distraction as well, in the way that the Trump administration is doing that. So there are lots of distractions, Emma Jo, and lots of things that I'm disturbed about. The Epstein files is certainly one of them, but yes, working class people being put upon and not getting the attention in this political environment that they deserve disturbs me greatly. Always. I'm always disturbed about that.
But also to that point, I mean, let's be honest. The American people elected the host of The Apprentice, who then appointed the weekend host of Fox and Friends to be the Secretary of Defense, a podcaster to be in charge of the FBI, the guy from Real World versus Road Rules Challenge to be in charge of both the FAA and NASA, Judge Janine to be over the DC Circuit. And now we're wondering why we're not having real policy conversations about serious legislation. This is just part of when idiocracy came out. We said this would happen in 500 years. I don't think we knew we would get President Mountain Dew Macho Camacho by 2026. But that's really just the way our politics is right now. And I would much rather be talking.
Politics is downstream from culture. So The Apprentice and like Road Rules or whatever proceeds what precedes it, which is our culture and our populist voting. But anyway, they've been scooped out of podcast world and cable news, which is they're meaning setting the conversation anymore. Why aren't we on the group chat analyzing?
The number two guy at the FBI left to go back to podcasting.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest about the state of our political system right now and understand that the nation is not having serious conversations, what makes it all the easier for tabloid stuff and sensational things to take over the media cycle. I want to be talking about the SAVE Act and us passing a brand new Jim Crow law. I think that's something important for the American people to understand.
Have people register, have to be proved they're citizens to vote is Jim Crow?
It's literally a Jim Crow law. You can read the old Jim Crow laws.
Okay.
And you can read the SAVE Act.
Of black
it's
people
written the
agree
same.
with it, but
no. Look, I want you to go and read Jim Crow laws from the 1930s.
I read the polls, which is the vast majority.
I want you to read the Jim Crow laws and read the text of the SAVE Act. It is the same text. It's just a Jim Crow law. So you can debate polls and whatever else you feel like. It's just a Jim Crow law. And we're trying to pass through a Jim Crow law before the midterm elections in order to steal the elections after raiding the Fulton County voting office to steal the machines. I think that's a bigger story, but that's not something that our populace is really ready to digest currently.
Just super quick. 76% of African Americans do support voter ID.
And it's still a Jim Crow law. You're conflating polls with what laws are written. When you have a poll,
but I guess the point is, people are not persuaded by that talking point
at all.
That's not a talking point. It's what the text of the act says. The text of the act is a Jim Crow law. It's no different than a poll tax. It's no different than a literacy test. Those were supported broadly back then. Also, everything can't be dictated by poll numbers but that's what happens when you have the host of The Apprentice being in charge of the country. We think everything should go up for a vote like American Idol, as opposed to reading what the Constitution says. So we can say it's
discriminatory to require that you can't to say that it's a law that you can't drive a car without a license.
Well, guess what? A car is not a constitutional right. George Washington and the framers did not write that into the Constitution.
But do you
voting, however, is
alienate black people from driving?
Look, it's not about that. It's about the Constitution. And the reason we have a Constitution is to protect the rights of individuals, regardless of the peculiarities of public opinion at the time. There was a point in time where slavery was really popular in the country. There was a point in time where Martin Luther King's approval rating was 32% before he was assassinated. We don't govern by polls, we govern by the Constitution. And the Constitution says you should not have to pay money to vote. And if you're requiring people to pay money for a passport or an ID to be able to vote, then guess what? You have yourself a poll tax, which is a Jim Crow law.
The Constitution then also says that you have to be a U.S. citizen to vote, which is all this was making you do. It's not necessarily that you have to prove it with the driver's license. If I could bring, a birth certificate from New York City, that counts.
Guess what? This has been litigated in southern states for the past 20 years. I was actually part of the litigation against the state of Georgia for their original voter ID law. And what always ends up happening is the state has to provide a free ID to all citizens, which means all of us will be required to, in order to vote, get a federally issued government ID. This is what libertarians have always warned us about. If you read the Turner diaries, they'll say, well, we'll all have to get a government ID and we'll all have to register with the government. They'll know where we're at. They'll know what we're doing. And that is what the conservatives are now doing to the country. So I want people to think deeply about these Jim Crow laws, because just as we see with everything else, you pass laws to hurt African Americans, other minorities, they circle back around to hurt everybody else. And they eventually gets there. So we can pretend it's not happening right now, but just read the text of the bill, read the text of the Jim Crow laws. And if you have the SAVE Act now, it won't be that long until they'll tell you that in order to be able to vote, you have to know how many bubbles are in a bar of soap, which was actually in a Jim Crow law in Mississippi in 1960.
Oh, come on. I really think that it's a really cynical interpretation to see this as a racial thing.
I didn't say it was a racial thing. I said it was a constitutional thing. You guys kept saying race. If you notice, I never said that. What I said was this is an unconstitutional Jim Crow law, and you can read the Jim Crow laws, which say the same thing as the SAVE Act.
Well, anyway, this is a much more interesting conversation to me than the Epstein stuff. I'm learning a ton.
I agree, because my point in all of this, people think the Jim Crow laws were just about stopping African Americans from voting. That wasn't at all. It was meant to stop African Americans. It was to stop other racial minorities. It was to stop women in particular, and it was to stop poor whites from being able to vote. And so when you're looking at who the SAVE Act will impact, people who went on their first trip to Europe when they were 5 years old and have a passport will not be impacted by this at all.
I just don't think it's a lot to ask people to be able to get an ID, and if that filters out
guess what?
the most disinterested citizens in our participation in our democracy, that would to me be a blessing. I would like only people participating in the democracy who are very invested in it and very invested in the future of our country, actually.
That's funny. That is literally what they said in Congress when they were passing the poll tax, because they said you want people who have the financial means and who are invested in the country, who are invested in the economy, and only they should be able to vote. Watch all these.
I would be fine with that, honestly.
Yeah. Watch all these poor people who can't afford a poll tax to be allowed to vote. So yes, we have now all agreed that to say that now, if I would let Jim Crow laws, that's fine.
I would be more people who have to pay more when we elect people who raise taxes. Should have. I would be fine with them having more of a say in our democracy.
The money thing is like, I think. I mean, how are you not able to prove with any form of anything, any shred of paper that you're a U.S. citizen?
No, Emma Jo, it's a $10 fee to somehow get this ID. That makes it impossible to do somehow.
Born is free. They write you up a thing.
Right.
I was born
but
in
if
America.
You lost the thing, or I don't know, then it's
lost the
impersonation. Voter fraud is not a thing. Okay.
Yeah.
It is absolutely not a thing. And the seminal report, The Truth About Voting Fraud, that I believe the Brennan Center did, stat after stat, proving that impersonation, somebody going in and pretending to be somebody else, is not a thing. It is less. I mean, it is less than
I don't believe it's not fraud at all. I got mailed this year. I live in an apartment. I got mailed the ballot for the previous tenant twice. Two of them.
Did you go in and try to impersonate them, Robby?
No, but I easily could have sent it in with
let me tell you something. There are laws in every state against voter fraud. There are consequences, both financial and jail time. not only did the Brennan Center, other centers or institutes have done studies, even more right-leaning ones, and all of them are saying or proving the same thing. The Brennan Center went on to say that there's a greater likelihood that you would be struck by lightning than to have impersonation of somebody trying to go to vote. It is already illegal. Other point is driving a car is not a fundamental right. Okay. So that should be a line that we draw in the sand. So if this is the thing, and we've had periods of time in this country, at the beginning of this country, only land-owning white males could vote before there was universal white male suffrage. So we can walk down this line and talk about the similarities of what is happening now to things that have happened in the past. Now, Robert lays out that the Jim Crow laws were not necessary. It didn't just, it wasn't just, the main target was Black people, and other people got caught up in the net. Those Jim Crow laws. And so what I reject, and not necessarily what Robert is saying, but I don't like it when other people put upon this burden, particularly just on the Black community, and use the Black community's plight historically in this country as some type of device when they're not sincere in what they're saying.
What do we do with the fact that, again, 75% of Black people support it? Go ahead, Emma.
Well, I was just saying, I don't know what it has to do with race at all. If anything, like a maybe more sort of the only argument that I sort of heard that was compelling was about married women, like when they're in the process of changing their name or have changed their name.
Well, I said that the last time we talked about this. There is a disproportionate impact when laws like this are passed. So if the government wants to do this,
that isn't true.
Then they should then provide the IDs. Provide the IDs.
No.
Provide the IDs. But okay, so what about the point that there is little to none impersonation of somebody else going?
I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters.
So it's a solution in search of a problem that does not exist. The problem doesn't exist, Emma Jo, is what I'm saying.
I mean, the problem
my house has never been broken into. I still lock my door at night.
Right. And I think what Republicans would say, correct me if I'm wrong, Emma Jo, but honestly, the big problem is the impact that illegal immigration has in inflating the number of citizens, of just people, bodies there are in blue states, that increases their demographic weight in the Congress and the Electoral College. Obviously, there's illegal immigrations in red states as well, but it's disproportionately in favor of California, Illinois, New York. And that is a bigger issue that's not addressed.
Wait a second. So you're saying that when Governor Abbott and DeSantis were busing migrants to blue cities, increasing those demographics, that was the problem?
From the standpoint of the census and giving disproportionate representation, sure.
So why were they busing all the migrants to blue states? They should have kept them right there in the red states. And frankly, there's an argument
I didn't think about it. I don't know, man.
And frankly, there's an argument to be made that they should have been busing them to other low population red states that could have used them. Those migrants weren't needed in Chicago, but they damn sure were needed in Wyoming and North and South Dakota and other agricultural states that have been experiencing population decline. But then you fix the rule, you fix the immigration process. But back to the point on the SAVE Act, which I think we can't miss out on. We can argue poll numbers as much as we want, but what we can't argue is that it is a Jim Crow law as defined by the Supreme Court of the United States. The Supreme Court has said you cannot put barriers in place to prevent individuals from voting. So if you put a financial barrier in place, you can't think about it from you getting mail in your apartment, because that's a luxury. If you sleep under a bridge, should you be allowed to vote? Or should you have to go find $10 to get the ID necessary to be able to vote? What Reverend Jackson told us for the last 40 years is that voter suppression is not about Bull Connor standing outside the polls with a dog and hoses. It's about skimming. How can you get 1 out of every 10 or 1 out of every 100 voters not to be able to cast a ballot? Think about Georgia in 2020. It only took 1 out of every 1,000 voters to change their vote for Trump to win that state, because he lost by 11,890 votes, something along those lines. So it's not about this wholesale taking away people's rights. It's about this question of how many people are going to be skimmed off the ballots because you put certain barriers in place. And what are the demographics that you're trying to do? poor people who can't afford it,
But
rural
it's
people who
very,
can't get to the polls,
I mean,
married
that's not
women
even
who
clear.
change their names.
It's not even
Poor
clear,
and
A,
poor
that
and
that
rural
helps
people are Republican
Trump.
voters on
Right.
more on a growing basis.
Yes.
But they're poor, and poor people
Affluent
generally like social
people are the
programs.
most reliable Democratic voters now. So the idea that this is some scheme to help Republicans in this last election benefited from the lower turnout people, right? They turned out for Trump. The Republican Party is going to have a huge problem with this when Trump is no longer on the ballot, because they've not demonstrated that they can get the newer part of their coalition to show up without Trump. I don't, honestly, if it was just doing calculus for what's best for the Republican Party, I think making it as easy to shoving ballots in everybody's faces might be the best thing for them now, because partisan, motivated, affluent people are
That's absolutely
Democrats
right.
are gaining with them.
Well, look,
If
the
the trailer parks were compelled to vote, the Republicans would never lose an election again.
Yeah, that's true.
As the only person here who grew up in a double-wide trailer, I can express to you that the reason they are putting these things in place, and also there was an edict that came down this week that they're going to stop processing passport applications at local libraries in many communities around the country. Why? So that if you are on a bus route, if you have to walk places, they want it as hard as possible for you to be able to get the documents you're going to need to be able to pay to vote. This is why it's a Jim Crow law. But I'm going to leave you with this on this point, that when you're looking at how these things work, what we're increasingly seeing is our country moving away from democracy and into this oligarchical system. This place where the affluent, the rich, have the ability to dictate policy, and the rest of us very much are simply at their whims. The robber barons, again, are creating their own Gilded Age. This is why they're debating a $400 million ballroom. This is why they're building triumphant arches while the rest of us are starving. And when you take the vote away from the poor, which is what this inevitably will do, taking votes away from poor people, then you get a bigger separation from those who are in power versus those who are in need of services, and that is destabilizing for any democratic system you can look across the globe. And in Georgia, as I said, we fought the voter ID laws for 20 years. Once they went into place in 2008, you did not have another African American or Democrat, because at the time you had Thurber Baker, the Attorney General, you had Michael Thurman, who was the Labor Secretary, you had African Americans who were elected statewide in Georgia in 2008. You did not have another one elected until Raphael Warnock in 2021. That's the impact that these laws have on the demographics of states and the way that you vote.
You mentioned Reverend Jesse Jackson, who passed away this week. Nina, I know you wanted to say something about the Reverend's impact.
Yeah, thank you. And I know we only got 3 minutes left. I think Chelsea gave us a.
Oh yeah, we can play that if you want. Yeah.
Play that. Yeah.
Sure. That's element 6. Let's play it.
Are different. My face is different. My hair is different. But I am somebody. I am black, brown, white. I speak a different language, but I must be respected, protected, never rejected. I am God's child.
Yeah, I mean, so much that we could say about Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr., just a seminal figure, not just in this country, but also internationally. I'm certainly blessed to have been in his aura. Never did I think a man that I met in the late 1999 as a fellow, that I would turn around and be able to be, in his space with him. Mrs. Jacqueline Jackson, and the Jackson family itself, who I have a very strong relationship, and Robert does too. We're often on Santita Jackson's radio show together. So my heart goes out. I know that all our hearts go out to the Jackson family and everything that Reverend meant to this country and changing politics in this country and bringing together a rainbow coalition, and the sacrifices that he made nationally and also internationally. He was ahead of his time, but he was also right on time. And his physical presence will be missed, but his legacy lives on.
Thank you so much for that. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in this week for another great episode of the group chat. We had planned to preview the State of the Union, talk about what Trump should say, talk about maybe Iran. But as sometimes happen, we got into a lively and spirited debate on other topics, which is just fine. We appreciate your comments and your thoughts, and we hope you show up again next week. If you had something to say, come next week. Get in that early hand, and we'll make sure to call on you so you can save the thought for next week. That's no problem. And have a great weekend, everybody, and we'll see you then. Bye-bye.